Hello and welcome to Rathod Science Academy. Today in this session we are going to see current affairs of 4th October 2025 and we are going to see very important topics that happened in our today's Hindu newspaper guys. And yesterday and day before yesterday there is no publish of this Hindu newspaper, so because of this I didn't recorded any video regarding this 2nd and 3rd October guys, and we are going to resume from today. So let us see the first article. Title says nations must prepare to deal with stable coins, says Sita Raman. So this article is very important. Actually, the keywords in this title is first one is stable coins, and next one here is the statement is given by our Union Finance Minister. So any one of our government delegates, so if they are giving any statements, then it will be becoming very important from your examination point of view, guys. So you have to know what are the stable coins first of all, and second thing that you have to know is why our finance minister gave that statement, and you have to see what is the impact of this. And this topic is important from both pre and as well as mains point of view, guys. So now let us see this topic. And before getting into the details, so this topic is very important from your GS paper 3 under economy point of view. So if you see context, it says that in an inaugural address at Kautilya Economic Conclave 2025, our finance minister came up with the statement that nation must prepare to deal with the stable coins. And actually our finance minister said that now we are in era of structural shift because now we are having fragmented globalization. So globalization is not complete today. Why? Because you already know US trade war, it is happening. So US imposed tariff on more than 56 countries. And you know that something is happening wrong in our global geopolitics, like Russia-Ukraine war, Israel-Palestine issue. So lots of the things are happening. So because of this, now exactly each and every country is not interconnected. So there is certain fragmentation is happening. So that is called as fragmented globalization. And next one is even we are having geopolitical rivalries. So you know that India is not having good relations with Pakistan and as well as China. And not only that, guys, so even US is also having certain low time relations with India. And not only that, so even other countries are also having rivalries. And actually, you know that India is sharing bond with many countries. With all these countries, India is not having the good relations. That is called as global geopolitical rivalries. And this one is there is slowing of trade is happening. So from this COVID-19 pandemic onwards, from 2019 end, like November, December onwards, there is decreasing of trade between the countries, and even there is decreased demand, increasing of inflation, and even you know that there are global uncertainties are happening. There is increasing of price of this crude oil. So everything because of this, what is happening here? There is slowing of trade, and even there is lots of imbalances in finance and as well as energy and supply chains. So in this context, now stable coins are transforming money and capital flows. So because of this, now nations they have to prepare to engage actively to avoid exclusion from new monetary architectures. Okay, now let us see the details. So this article is saying that why nations has to prepare. The first one is stable coins are unstoppable. So it will mainly bypasses our traditional banking and as well as regulatory system so that it can reshape our global capital flows. And this one here is there is also risk of exclusion. So if you're not adapting to this stable coins, you will be excluded from the nations because it is one of the emerging monetary systems, and we have to follow this new kind of trend. And this one is stable coins, they also enable faster, cheaper cross-border transactions. So it will be also having destabilizing the weaker currency, or even in unintegrated economies also it is having a problem. And this one is we have to go for proactive engagement in sovereignty, and as well as there are high increase of uncertainties, tariffs, energy transactions, sanctions, etc. So for all these things we can use the stable coins. And what is a stable coin first of all? Stable coin is nothing but a digital currency or cryptocurrency which is related to a stable reserve asset. For example, normally whatever the crypto coins, bitcoins that we have, there is no backup for that. But here stable coins, they will be having a reserve asset like US or dollar. And it is designed to reduce volatility relative to unexpected cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. So we don't know what will be the price of the Bitcoin, but here we are going to have the stable coins and they will be having the good value. There will be no steady or volatility or rapid change in the price of this stable coin in the market. So actually we came up in the year 2014. The first stable coin is Tether. You have to know that. So recently Tether is in news. What is it? It is a stable coin. So usually it is specifically linked to a currency backed by the government. So there is a backup will be there for this stable coin. And currently there are dozens of stable coins that use the dollar as their benchmark asset. And actually, this stable coin also linked to other fiat currencies such as euro and as well as yen. And the stable coins they offer relatively stable option for traditional investors so that there will be no volatility in the market. Okay. And now let us see the next article. Title says India accuses Pakistan and Bangladesh of systematic abuse of marginalized. So this article is talking about two countries and India's relations. So here we have Pakistan, right? And here we have Bangladesh. So article saying that from this Pakistan and Bangladesh we are having lots of issues. So because of this lots of issues, especially human rights of the people are getting violated, especially who are marginalized. And this topic is important from GS paper to under international relations. And this topic is important from your mains point of view, guys. So now let us see this article in detail. So if you see context, it says that India through its Ministry of External Affairs accuses that Pakistan and Bangladesh of failing to protect marginalized and minority communities. So actually what is happening, especially minorities from this Pakistan and Bangladesh, they are facing issues and that is leading to these human rights violations. Why? Because of failure of governance. And if you see some details, it says that because of this failure of governance and as well as human rights violations, there are long-term and as well as short-term impacts. So what will be the short-term impacts? So as you all know that India, Pakistan and as well as Bangladesh, they are form of certain groupings, especially we have SARC. So this SARC level cooperation will be getting strained, and even you know that Bangladesh is not stable politically. Recently, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, she was ousted. Yes. So here now there is interim government in this Bangladesh under this Mohammed Yunus. So actually here this Bangladesh interim regime may also intensify and as well as that will lead to anti-India rhetoric, and even POK protest also gains Indian moral support. So that can lead to prolonged unrest between India, Pakistan and as well as India, Bangladesh. And not only that, here BJP strongman image on border security and minority rights, especially ahead of festivals like now we have Durga Puja, Diwali and as well as Christmas, etc. So it will also focus about the Hindu safety in Bangladesh. It is one of the flashpoint now. So here there is impact of the domestic politics in other countries as well. And this one here is lots of clashes are happening and even POK issues are happening. Further shutdowns, internet shutdowns, everything will leads to the further more impact on these marginalized communities of India. And if you see what will be the long-term impacts, the first one is it will erode trust post Hasina era. If we are unaddressing this marginalized people interest, that will also hinder trade, water sharing talks, and even it can also exacerbate refugee flows as well. And this one here is between India and Pakistan. Also, we know that the recent relations had been strained a lot because of this Operation Sindoor Pahalgam terror attack. So that will also lead to the limiting of dialogue between India and Pakistan, and that will also leads to involvement of third party. So that will leads to the loss of fame of India. And this one is it will also strengthen India's voice in forums like United Nations Human Rights Council on minority rights, and even US also reports on Indian human rights, etc. So because of all these things, yes, we can gain a voice in this international organizations. And now let us see next article. Title says tourist at Tadoba Andheri Tiger Reserve in Maharashtra Friday. The park in Chandrapur district reopened on October 1st, alter a gap of 3 months. More than 90% of the slots are booked for the next 3 months. So this article is talking about Tadoba Andheri Tiger Reserve, guys. So if you're getting any national park reserves in the news, that will be very important from your prelims. You can expect a prelims based question from that area. And this topic is important from your environment and ecology, which comes under GS paper 3. So if you see this facts about this Tadoba Andheri Tiger Reserve, it is located in this Chandrapur district in Maharashtra. And it is one of the largest and oldest tiger reserves of Maharashtra. And Tadoba, the word which had been derived from the name of the god, Tadoba or Taru, which is mainly praised by the local tribal people in this region. Andheri derived from this name of river Andheri, which flows in this river. So the name of this tiger reserve is Tadoba Andheri Tiger Reserve. And it reserves these reserves includes Tadoba National Park, Andheri Wildlife Sanctuary, and also this reserve is also having some linkages with this Naxira, Navagon, and Pench Tiger Reserve within the state. And if you see the habitat here, the reserve falls in the central plateau province of the Deccan Peninsula. And actually, this habitat has undulating topography in north and it is rich in biodiversity. And if you see the vegetation, it consists of especially tropical dry deciduous type of vegetation, and there are two lakes and waterways in this reserve. There are Tadoba Lake, Kolsa Lake, and Tadoba River. And if you see flora, so it is blessed with very thick forest. We have teak trees and other vegetation like crocodile bark, salai, tendu, mahua, etc. And this area, which is very much rich in this fauna, that is animal species like tiger, leopard, sloth bear, wild dog, goar, chital, sambar, etc. And if you see the next article, title says two dead, over 100 injured during Banni festival in Andhra Pradesh. So here, whenever you're getting this kind of articles, it is very important from two subjects. First one is from disaster management from GS paper 3 because loss of life happened and many got injured. And next one is this incident happened in one folk festival. So it is important from our GS paper 1 and a art and culture point of view. So you can get mains and as well as prelims based question. So from art and culture point of view, you can get prelims based question. From disaster management point of view, you can get mains based question. So if you see in India, NCRB report, that is National Crime Records Bureau, says there are three important reasons why the people are dying in the stampedes. The first one here is because of political rallies, second one is religious rallies or religious congregations, and third one is celebrities. So recently, you know that celebrity come politician regarding stampede happened in Tamil Nadu because of this Vijay political party, right? And now actually it is not exactly a stampede, but in this festival they'll use sticks to fight or to beat one another. So because of this that led. So even you can see this topic from your stampede crowd management point of view also. It is one dimension that I want to be very clear. So this is only one dimension that you have to use. So now let us see some facts regarding this Banni festival. It is a traditional stick fight. It is celebrated on the night of Dasra celebrations on this Vijayadashmi every year in this AP. And the objective of this festival is to snatch the idols from the god's teeth. And that will lead to a fierce battle, and this is known as Banni fight. And this festival was celebrated by the people under Vijayanagara Empire. Very, very important point. And is celebrated on the account of the victory of Lord Malla Malleshwara Swami and goddess Parvati over demonish Mani and Mallasura. Okay, and if you see the ritual takes place at the midnight when the possession of these idols of the ruling deities Mallamma and Malleshwara Swami are brought down the hill temple at Naraninki. Devotees carry long sticks or lattes with them for hitting each other with these sticks on the head. The basic idea of this fight is to capture the possession of this idol. And very important article of the day is this clean energy rise needs climate finance expansion. So clean energy is nothing but we know that we are focusing on renewable energy resources. That is nothing but clean energy. For example, solar, wind, tidal, geothermal, etc. So this article is saying that we have to focus on clean energy and we have to focus on increasing of climate expansion. So now let us see the context. If you see this article, it says that there is increasing of global, there is increasing of global surge. Okay, now let us see. Now let us see this article. The context says that the global surge in clean energy adoption, there is increasing of clean energy adoption. The drive, the driven by the falling cost and the policy support. Okay, now let us see this article. So this article is saying that there is increasing of clean energy adoption. That means nothing but every country is focusing on increasing of their solar energy, wind energy, tidal energy, etc. And especially countries wants to go for decreasing of this carbon dioxide emissions. Okay, and every country have their own NDCs, nationally determined contributions. And India is also having its own NDCs and what it wants to achieve this NDCs. And even we have a target of carbon neutrality or net zero by 2070. So to achieve this, what happens? We have to move towards this renewable energy. We have to increase our capacity of this generation of electricity, which is required for our country's population, especially through this clean energy. So climate finance, it is mainly focusing on public, private, and international funds, and we have to focus on mitigation, adaptation, and resilience. So that this article is saying that we have to expand our investment. Okay, so whatever the gap we have in this investment, we have to bridge this investment. So now let us see the data of increasing of clean energy in the India and as well as across the globe. So clean energy investment have been reached $1.78 trillion in 2023. The total energy sector capital projected at like $3.3 trillion by 2025. That is 2% rise. And actually it mainly led by the solar and as well as wind. And not only that, there is increased technology and economy as well. The cost of the solar PV, that is nothing but photovoltaic, had been fell by 89% since 2010. So now we are focusing on employing of more such kind of PV, solar PVs, that is solar photovoltaic panels. That is leading to the increasing of GDP. And not only that, India also added 24.5 gigawatts of solar capacity by 2024. And not only that, in 2025 climate report also, this says that India, Brazil, and China, they're also focusing on increasing of solar and wind energy. And also India came up with this international solar alliance and as well as green bond issuance also. So that we are focusing on especially how to increase this clean energy production. So why we have to focus on this climate finance expansion? So actually we have a gap in investment. So global needs for clean energy is estimated like $4 to $6 trillion annually by 2030. But now we have only 2 trillion. So there is a gap and we have to reduce this or we have to bridge this gap. And one is we have to improve emerging technology. Like we have to focus on battery, integrated renewables, and decentralized grids, and green hydrogen, etc. And this one is we have to focus on adaptation, especially we have to support low carbon growth and resilience, especially in developing countries and as well as least developed countries. So for all these things, it is very important. And if you see what are the challenges we have in this climate finance, first one is there is gap, and next one is we have lots of barriers. So developing and least developed countries, they don't have proper access to this technology. And next one is we have the problems in governance, risk, transparency, hurdles, etc. And what are the recommendations we can do? So we can improve this public-private partnership, we can mobilize the domestic capital, and we can improve this carbon markets, and we can focus on improving of innovation technology, and we can go for India-led actions. So all these steps are very, very important for achieving of this climate finance, for this achieving of clean energy, and to achieve this NDC targets of different countries. So these are the important topics that happened in our today's Hindi newspaper. By this I'm concluding. Thank you so much guys for watching, and please do like this class and share this class.